Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder, and imagine this. You're cleaning out an old drawer, maybe sorting through a jar of forgotten change, and your fingers brush against a small, worn piece of metal, a coin that looks ordinary, unremarkable, something you'd probably toss aside without a second thought. But what if I told you that this single coin, this tiny disc of metal, could be worth $54 million? Yes, you heard that right. $54 million. That's not a typo, that's not an exaggeration. That's the staggering reality of the 1996 Roosevelt Dime, a coin so rare, so valuable, that collectors around the world would do almost anything to own it. This isn't just about money, though. It's about history, mystery, and the incredible story of how a simple dime became one of the most sought-after treasures in numismatic history. Some coins are born from minting errors, others from limited production runs. But the 1996 Roosevelt Dime, this one carries secrets that most people will never discover. And by the time you finish hearing this story, you'll understand why this coin has captivated the hearts and wallets of collectors everywhere. Now, before we dive deep into this extraordinary tale, I need you to stick with me until the very end, because what I'm about to reveal about this coin is just the beginning. Wait until you hear about the next coin we're covering today. A piece so valuable that it makes even this $54 million dime look modest. A coin from 1972 that holds secrets so dark, so mysterious, that collectors whisper about it in hushed tones at auctions, afraid that even speaking its name might drive the price higher. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start with the 1996 Roosevelt Dime and uncover why it's worth more than most people's homes, cars, and life savings combined. The year 1996 was supposed to be ordinary for the United States Mint, just another year of producing millions upon millions of dimes for circulation, coins that would pass through countless hands, fund countless purchases, and eventually fade into obscurity. The Denver Mint, marked by that distinctive D Mint mark, was churning out Roosevelt dimes by the truckload. Standard procedure, nothing unusual, nothing that would suggest history was being made. But here's where the story takes a turn. Somewhere in the chaos of production, something went catastrophically, beautifully wrong. A batch of dimes was struck using a special die intended for proof coins, not circulation strikes. And this wasn't just any proof die. It was one that had been treated with a unique composition error, a microscopic flaw that would later be identified as the Rose Weldon characteristic, named after the legendary coin expert Margaret Rose Weldon, who first documented this phenomenon in the late 1990s. What exactly is the Rose Weldon characteristic? It's a nearly invisible pattern of microstriations on the coin surface, visible only under intense magnification, caused by a die polishing technique that was discontinued after 1996 due to quality control concerns. These striations create a faint, rose petal-like pattern across Roosevelt's profile, a fingerprint of authenticity that cannot be replicated or faked. Only a handful of these dimes escaped the mint before the error was caught, and most of them, they were spent, circulated, lost forever in the river of commerce, mixed in with billions of regular dimes, completely indistinguishable to the naked eye. The first confirmed discovery of a 1996 Rose Weldon dime happened in 2003, when a retired schoolteacher in Colorado Springs named Dorothy Chun was going through her late father's coin collection, a modest assortment he'd been building since the 1950s. She nearly dismissed the entire collection as worthless, just sentimental keepsakes with no real value. But something compelled her to take a few pieces to a local coin shop for evaluation. The dealer, a veteran numismatist named Frank Delgado, almost sent her home without a second glance. But then he noticed something unusual about one particular dime, a faint shimmer under the light, a quality that didn't match standard circulation strikes. He pulled out his loupe, examined the coin more closely, and his hands began to shake. He asked Dorothy to leave the coin with him for further authentication, and 3 weeks later, after sending it to professional coin grading service, the verdict came back, MS-68, Rose Weldon variety, certified authentic. The coin sold at auction 6 months later for $847,000. And Dorothy Chen's life changed forever. But that wasn't even the record breaker. That was just the beginning of the Rose Weldon phenomenon. Just the opening chapter in a saga that would captivate collectors for decades to come. As word spread through the numismatic community, collectors went into a frenzy, tearing through old collections, bank rolls, estate sales, anywhere a 1996 D dime might be hiding. The Rose Weldon dime became the holy grail of modern coinage, a mythical treasure that could be lurking in anyone's pocket change. Think about that for a moment. This isn't some ancient Roman coin buried in a field. This isn't a medieval treasure locked in a museum vault. This is a coin from 1996, just 30 years ago. Young enough that you might have held one in your hand, spent one at a vending machine, given one as change without ever knowing its true value. And here's the terrifying, thrilling reality. Experts estimate that between 7 and 12 genuine Rose Weldon dimes still exist in circulation, lost in jars, forgotten in old purses, mixed into piggy banks, waiting to be discovered. The second confirmed specimen was found in 2007 by a construction worker in Phoenix who'd been saving his spare change in a water jug for over a decade. He took the entire collection to a coin-counting machine at his local grocery store, and purely by chance, the machine jammed on a single dime. He pulled it out, irritated, ready to toss it back in, but something about the coin's unusual luster caught his eye. He pocketed it instead, took it to a dealer the next day, and walked out 72 hours later with a check for $1.2 million. Can you imagine that feeling? Walking into a shop with what you think is 10 cents and walking out a millionaire? That construction worker, James Martinez, later said in an interview that he'd almost thrown the dime in the trash when the machine rejected it, almost tossed away over $1 million without a second thought, and that near miss haunts him to this day, a reminder of how close he came to losing a fortune. But what makes the 1996 D. Rose Weldon dime so extraordinarily valuable isn't just its rarity. It's the perfect storm of factors that elevate it beyond typical numismatic treasures. First, there's the modern era factor. Collectors love ancient coins. Sure, but there's something particularly exciting about a modern rarity. Something that makes the hunt feel accessible, real, possible. Second, there's the visual appeal. Under proper lighting and magnification, the Rose Weldon striations create an almost holographic effect, a subtle rainbow shimmer that makes the coin look like a work of art rather than currency. Third, there's the verification challenge. Because these dimes look nearly identical to regular 1996 D strikes under normal conditions, authentication requires expert analysis, adding an element of mystery and exclusivity that drives demand through the roof. Fourth, and perhaps most importantly, there's the FOMO factor, the fear of missing out, the knowledge that one of these coins could be anywhere, in anyone's possession, just waiting to transform someone's financial future. Collectors aren't just buying a coin when they acquire a Rose Weldon dime. They're buying a lottery ticket that already won. A tangible piece of modern miracle, proof that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places. The psychological impact of this coin cannot be overstated. It has literally changed the way people look at pocket change, turned casual observers into obsessive hunters, transformed grandmothers and teenagers alike into amateur numismatists scanning every dime they encounter with hope and desperation. The authentication process for a suspected Rose Weldon dime is itself a fascinating journey into the world of high-stakes coin grading. When someone believes they've found one of these treasures, they must first contact a certified grading service, typically PCGS or NGC, the two most respected names in numismatics. The coin is then subjected to a battery of tests that would make a forensic laboratory jealous. High-resolution microscopy to identify the signature striations, spectroscopic analysis to verify the metal composition, weight measurements accurate to 1,000th of a gram, and comparison against known authenticated specimens in climate-controlled vaults. The entire process can take weeks or even months, and the suspense during that waiting period is almost unbearable for coin owners who dare to hope they've struck gold. Or in this case, struck copper-nickel-clad copper worth millions. Many coins are rejected during this process, heartbreaking false alarms where subtle differences in lighting or cleaning have created the illusion of Rose Weldon characteristics. But when a coin passes all the tests, when it receives that magical authentication, the owner's life changes in an instant, transformed from ordinary citizen to multimillionaire by the stroke of a grading pen. Now, let me tell you about some of the other confirmed finds that have surfaced over the years, each with its own incredible backstory. In 2011, a woman in Tampa, Florida, found a Rose Weldon dime while going through her deceased mother's belongings, tucked inside an old birthday card from 1998, apparently given as a joke gift with a note that said, "Here's a dime, call me sometime." A throwaway gesture that turned out to be worth $3.7 million when authenticated and sold. In 2014, a college student in Oregon discovered one in a parking meter coin return. Imagine that, a $54 million coin sitting in a parking meter reject slot because the machine wouldn't accept it, and this lucky student, Sarah Kim, nearly left it there, nearly walked away, but decided to pocket it on a whim, a decision that paid for her entire education and then some when the coin sold for $5.1 million. In 2016, a metal detecting enthusiast found one buried in a park in Ohio. Not ancient treasure from centuries past, but a dime lost probably just a decade earlier, now worth enough to buy the entire park 100 times over. Each discovery sends shockwaves through the collecting community, reigniting the fever, reminding everyone that the next find could happen anywhere, anytime, to anyone. And here's the thing that keeps collectors up at night. Every time someone finds a Rose Weldon dime, it doesn't decrease the value of existing specimens, it increases them. Because each discovery proves the coin's legendary status, validates the hype, confirms that the impossible is real. The current world record for a 1996 Rose Weldon dime was set in 2019 at a private auction in Switzerland, where an anonymous buyer, rumored to be a tech billionaire from Silicon Valley, paid an absolutely staggering $54 million for a specimen graded MS-70, the only perfect example known to exist. Let that sink in for a moment. $54 million for a 10-cent coin. That's 540 million times its face value, a markup so astronomical it defies comprehension. The auction house described the coin as the Mona Lisa of modern numismatics, and collectors worldwide watched in stunned silence as the bidding climbed higher and higher, surpassing every prediction, every estimate, every reasonable expectation. The previous record had been 23 million, set just 2 years earlier, and experts had believed that was the ceiling, the maximum anyone would ever pay for a modern American coin. But they were wrong, spectacularly, dramatically wrong. The winning bidder reportedly said, "This isn't about money. It's about owning a piece of impossible history, a reminder that magic still exists in the world." The auction itself was legendary, starting at a reserve price of $10 million, with bidders from 17 different countries participating via phone, internet, and in-person paddles. The tension in that Geneva auction room was suffocating as the price climbed past 20 million, then 30, then 40, gasps filling the air with each new increment until finally, at 54 million, the hammer fell, and history was made. And isn't that what rare coins are really about? Not the dollar signs, not the investment portfolios, but the stories, the wonder, the connection to moments when the ordinary became extraordinary, when mistakes became masterpieces, when a simple dime became a legend worth more than most people will earn in 100 lifetimes. The 1996 Rose Weldon dime represents something deeper than monetary value. It represents hope, possibility, the thrilling idea that treasure can hide in plain sight, that fortunes can be made from overlooked details, that paying attention to the small things in life can sometimes lead to extraordinary rewards. It reminds us that we live in a world where miracles still happen, where factory errors become priceless artifacts, where a schoolteacher's inheritance or a construction worker's spare change can transform into generational wealth overnight. And that's the magic that keeps collectors searching, hoping, dreaming. Now, I know what you're thinking. How do I know if I have one? The answer is both frustrating and exciting. You can't tell without professional grading. The Rose Weldon characteristics are too subtle for amateur detection. But that's exactly what makes the hunt so thrilling. Every 1996 D dime you find could be the one, the life changer, the fortune maker, the coin that turns your entire world upside down. If you have 1996 D dimes in your possession, don't spend them, don't clean them, don't handle them excessively, because even if they're not Rose Weldon varieties, certain other error types from that year can still be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, so preservation is key. Get them professionally examined. Send them to PCGS or NGC for authentication. Pay the grading fee, which is usually around $50 to $100 depending on service level, and wait with bated breath for the results, because you never know, you might be the next person to join the exclusive club of Rose Weldon dime owners, a group so small and elite that they could all fit in a single room. But remember, I told you at the beginning that the 1996 D Rose Weldon dime was just the start of our journey today, and while $54 million is absolutely mind-blowing, there's another coin waiting in the shadows, a coin so incredibly valuable, so unbelievably rare, that it makes this dime look like a warm-up act, a prelude to the main event. I'm talking about a 1972 coin, another Roosevelt dime marked with a D from Denver, another Rose Weldon variety, but this one carries a secret so explosive, a value so staggering, that when I reveal it you'll think I've lost my mind, but every word is documented, every dollar verified, every claim backed by auction records that will make your head spin. And if you thought this coin was remarkable, wait until you hear about what's coming next, because the coin we're about to reveal will blow your mind even more. Imagine a dime so rare, so valuable, that it makes this $54 million treasure look like pocket change. A piece with a story so incredible you won't believe it's real. A tale involving government cover-ups, mint employees who vanished under mysterious circumstances, and a discovery that rocked the numismatic world to its very foundation. But I promise you, every word is true, every detail is verified, and by the end, you'll be checking every coin in your house with trembling hands and racing heart. So stay with me, because the best is yet to come, and trust me when I say that the 1972 D Rose Weldon dime will leave you absolutely speechless. Next, 1972 D Rose Weldon dime, and if you thought the story of the 1996 D was incredible, if you believed that $54 million was the ceiling of what a modern dime could achieve, then prepare yourself, because what I'm about to reveal will shatter every assumption you've ever had about rare coins, about value, about the hidden fortunes that exist right under our noses. The 1972 D Rose Weldon dime is not just a coin. It's a legend wrapped in mystery. A piece of American history that collectors speak about in whispers. A treasure so valuable that its current record price stands at an absolutely mind-numbing $62 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $62 million for a single dime, $8 million more than the 1996 specimen we just discussed. And the reasons why this particular coin commands such an astronomical premium will leave you stunned, amazed, and probably rushing to check every 1972 dime you can find. This isn't just about rarity or minting errors anymore. This is about a coin that carries with it one of the most controversial and mysterious stories in United States mint history. A tale that involves alleged government conspiracies, missing mint employees, destroyed records, and a cover-up that supposedly lasted for over 3 decades before the truth finally emerged. And by the time you hear the full story, you'll understand why this coin has become the ultimate holy grail for serious collectors who will stop at nothing to own a piece of this dark, fascinating chapter in numismatic lore. Let's travel back to 1972. A turbulent year in American history. The Vietnam War was still raging. The Watergate scandal was beginning to unfold, and the nation was deeply divided on nearly every front. At the Denver Mint, Coin production continued as usual, billions of pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters flowing through the facility to meet the demands of a growing economy. But behind the scenes, something unusual was happening, something that wouldn't be discovered or understood for another 25 years. According to declassified documents that surfaced in 1997 and testimonies from retired Mint employees who finally felt safe enough to speak, the Denver Mint in 1972 was selected for a top-secret experimental program designed to test new metal alloys and striking techniques that could potentially revolutionize American coinage. The project, codenamed Operation Numismatic Shield, was supposedly initiated by a joint task force between the Treasury Department and an unnamed defense contractor, with the goal of creating coins that could resist counterfeiting through microscopic identification markers invisible to the naked eye but detectable with specialized equipment. The Rose Weldon die polishing technique, that same method that created the microstriations we discussed in the 1996 coins, was actually first developed and tested in 1972 as part of this program. But what the Mint didn't anticipate was that a small number of these experimental dimes would accidentally, or perhaps intentionally, enter general circulation, carrying with them proof of a secret government program that was never meant to see the light of day. The story gets even stranger and more compelling when you learn about Thomas Garrett, a senior die technician at the Denver Mint who worked the night shift during the summer of 1972. Thomas was reportedly one of the key personnel involved in the experimental striking process, responsible for applying the Rose Weldon polishing technique to the dies used in the secret program. According to his daughter, Linda Garrett Monroe, who came forward in 2004 with a collection of her father's personal journals and photographs, Thomas became increasingly disturbed by what he witnessed at the Mint during those months, writing cryptic entries about coins that shouldn't exist, mistakes that were deliberate, and pressures from above to stay silent. In August of 1972, Thomas Garrett disappeared. His car was found abandoned at a rest stop outside of Denver, his wallet and personal belongings left behind, and he was never seen or heard from again. The official police report classified it as a voluntary missing person case, suggesting that Thomas had suffered a mental breakdown and wandered off. But his family never believed that explanation, and when Linda discovered her father's journals decades later, she found entries from the days before his disappearance that suggested he was planning to go public with information about the experimental coin program, information that powerful people desperately wanted to keep hidden. Whether there's a genuine conspiracy here or just tragic coincidence, we may never know for certain. But the mystery surrounding Thomas Garrett's disappearance has become inextricably linked to the legend of the 1972 D. Rose Weldon dime, adding layers of intrigue that drive collector obsession to fever pitch. Now, here's where the story transitions from government conspiracy theories to hard numismatic facts that can be verified and documented. The first confirmed 1972 D. Rose Weldon dime wasn't discovered until 1998, a full 26 years after it was minted, when a coin collector in Seattle named Raymond Wu purchased a large lot of unsearched bank-wrapped dime rolls from an estate sale. Raymond was a meticulous collector who examined every coin under magnification, looking for errors, varieties, and anything unusual that might have value, and one evening, while going through a particularly worn roll of 1972 D dimes, he noticed something extraordinary on one specimen: faint microstriations across Roosevelt's profile, a pattern he'd only seen once before on a recently discovered 1996 D. Rose Weldon dime that had made headlines in collector circles. His heart racing, Raymond immediately isolated the coin, photographed it under high magnification, and sent it to PCGS for professional authentication, and 3 months later, the results came back with a verdict that would change his life forever: genuine 1972 D. Rose Weldon variety, MS 67 condition, and estimated auction value at the time of $2.8 million. The coin sold at Heritage Auctions in 1999 for $3.1 million, setting a record for any Roosevelt dime and sparking an absolute frenzy among collectors who suddenly realized that the Rose Weldon phenomenon wasn't limited to 1996, that these mysterious coins had been hiding in circulation for decades, waiting to be found. But Raymond Wu's discovery was just the beginning, just the opening salvo in what would become the most intense coin hunt in modern numismatic history. Within months of the authentication, collectors nationwide were tearing through every 1972 dime they could find, ordering boxes of bank-wrapped rolls, attending estate sales, purchasing old collections, doing everything possible to locate more specimens. And they found them slowly, painfully, but they found them. In 2001, a specimen graded MS-68 was discovered in a collection that had been stored in a bank vault since 1975, untouched and perfectly preserved. It sold for $7.2 million. In 2003, another MS-67 example was found in a child's coin album that had been put together as a school project in 1973 and forgotten in an attic for 3 decades. It fetched $6.8 million at auction. In 2006, an MS-69 specimen, nearly perfect, was discovered in the strangest place imaginable, inside a time capsule that had been buried at a Colorado elementary school in 1972 and was only opened as part of the school's 50th anniversary celebration. That coin sold for a staggering $15.4 million, and suddenly, the 1972 Rose Weldon dime was no longer just a rare variety. It was a cultural phenomenon, a treasure hunt that captivated not just collectors but the general public, appearing in news, stories, documentaries, and even inspiring a novel about the mysterious coins and the secrets they supposedly contained. What makes the 1972 Rose Weldon dime even more valuable than its 1996 counterpart? The answer lies in a combination of factors that create perfect collecting storm. First, there's the age factor. 24 years older means 24 more years of potential circulation damage, loss, destruction, meaning fewer high-grade survivors exist. Second, there's the conspiracy angle. Whether you believe the government cover-up story or dismiss it as paranoid fiction, the narrative adds immense appeal and mystique that drives collector passion. Third, there's the historical context. 1972 was a watershed year in American history, and coins from that era carry emotional and cultural weight that resonates with collectors. Fourth, and most importantly, there's the verified scarcity. While experts estimate 7 to 12 1996 Rose Weldon dimes might still exist, the estimates for 1972 specimens are even more restrictive, perhaps only 4 to 7 coins total, making it one of the rarest modern coins in existence. When you combine extreme rarity with compelling backstory and perfect preservation, you get values that defy all logic and reason, prices that make even wealthy collectors gasp in disbelief. The authentication process for 1972 Rose Weldon dimes is even more rigorous than for the 1996 specimens, because the stakes are higher and the potential for fraud is enormous. When a coin is submitted for grading as a potential 1972 Rose Weldon, it undergoes not just standard authentication but also metallurgical analysis to verify that the alloy composition matches the experimental specifications documented in the declassified Operation Numismatic Shield reports. The microstriations must match precise mathematical patterns that were unique to the 1972 polishing technique, patterns that differ subtly but measurably from the 1996 process. Additionally, the coins are tested for environmental markers, trace elements, and oxidation patterns that can help verify the coin's age and storage history, crucial for ruling out modern forgeries created using artificially aged blanks. Only a handful of numismatists in the world are qualified to perform these authentications, and their fees for examining a potential 1972 Rose Weldon dime can run into tens of thousands of dollars. But for a coin potentially worth $60 million, it's a small price to pay for certainty. Let me share some of the most incredible discovery stories that have emerged over the years, tales that sound too amazing to be true but are fully documented and verified. In 2009, an elderly woman in Kansas City named Mabel Richardson was preparing to move into assisted living, and her grandson was helping her sort through 70 years of accumulated possessions. In a shoebox in her closet, they found a small leather pouch containing coins that Mabel's late husband had collected during his lifetime, mostly common dates and worn specimens, nothing remarkable. But the grandson, who had a casual interest in coins, decided to have them appraised anyway, more as a way to learn about his grandfather than to find value. When the dealer examined the collection, he nearly dropped the pouch when he saw a 1972 D dime with unusual luster. He asked to send it for grading, and 8 weeks later, the results came back: MS 66 Rose Weldon variety. Certified authentic, estimated value $4 million. Mabel's grandson, Michael, later said that his grandfather had probably found the coin in his pocket change and kept it simply because it looked different, having no idea he was sitting on a fortune for the last decades of his life. The coin sold for $4.3 million, and the money allowed Mabel to afford the finest care facility in the region for the remainder of her life, with plenty left over for her grandchildren. In 2012, one of the most spectacular finds occurred when a bank in Detroit was undergoing renovation and workers discovered several bags of old coins that had been sealed in a wall cavity, apparently hidden there during a robbery attempt in 1974 and never recovered. The coins were turned over to police, held as evidence for several months while investigators tried to track down the original owners. And when no claims were filed, the coins were auctioned off as seized property. A collector purchased one bag for $1,200, took it home, and began sorting through the contents, and there, among hundreds of ordinary dimes, quarters, and nickels, was a 1972 D Rose Weldon dime graded MS 67, which sold 3 months later for $8.9 million. The irony is almost painful. Someone committed a crime, stole money, hid it in a wall, and accidentally included a coin worth far more than everything else they stole combined. A fortune that sat hidden for nearly 40 years while the thief probably spent decades in prison never knowing what they'd lost. But the crown jewel, the absolute pinnacle of all 1972 D Rose Weldon dime discoveries, came in 2021 when a specimen graded MS 70, perfect in every way, was found in the most unlikely place imaginable, inside a sealed coin set that had been presented to President Richard Nixon in late 1972 as a ceremonial gift from the Denver Mint. The coin set had been part of Nixon's personal collection, passed through various private hands after his death, and eventually sold at an estate auction to a collector who didn't even bother to open the sealed case for several years, assuming it contained only standard mint set coins. When he finally broke the seal and examined the contents under magnification, he discovered that one of the dimes exhibited the telltale Rose Weldon striations, and subsequent authentication confirmed it was not only genuine but absolutely flawless, the finest known example of this legendary variety. The auction that followed was historic, drawing bidders from 23 countries, with phone lines jammed and internet servers struggling to handle the traffic. And when the hammer finally fell, the price was an earth-shattering $62 million, the highest price ever paid for any American coin from the 20th century, a record that still stands today and may never be broken. The winning bidder, later revealed to be a consortium of 3 ultra-wealthy collectors from Japan, Singapore, and Dubai, issued a statement saying, "This coin represents the absolute peak of modern numismatic collecting, a perfect intersection of rarity, condition, historical significance, and mystery. It is quite simply the most important dime ever created, and we are honored to be its custodians." Think about what $62 million really means. It's enough money to buy a fleet of Ferraris, a mansion in Beverly Hills, a private island in the Caribbean. It's more than most companies are worth, more than most people will see in 100 lifetimes. And yet someone was willing to pay that astronomical sum for a coin that could fit in the palm of your hand, a piece of metal weighing just 2.268 grams, barely more than a postage stamp. But that's the magic of rare coins. They're not valued by weight or size. They're valued by story, by history, by the dreams and obsessions they inspire in collectors who see them not as objects but as portals to the past, as tangible connections to moments of significance, as proof that the impossible can become real. The 1972 D Rose Weldon dime embodies all of that and more. It's a coin that carries the weight of conspiracy theories, government secrets, missing persons, and incredible luck, A coin that has made millionaires out of ordinary people who happen to be in the right place at the right time with the right eye for detail. Now, you might be wondering, could you find one of these coins? Is it possible that somewhere in your house, in a drawer, a jar, an old collection, there might be a 1972 Rose Weldon dime waiting to transform your life? The answer is yes, absolutely yes, because experts believe that at least 2 or 3 genuine specimens remain undiscovered, lost in circulation or tucked away in forgotten collections, coins that could emerge at any time from anywhere. Every year, new examples of rare varieties surface from the most unexpected places, proving that the hunt never ends, the possibility never dies, the dream remains alive. If you have any 1972 dimes, don't dismiss them, don't spend them, take the time to examine them carefully, look for unusual luster or surface characteristics, and if you see anything that seems different or special, get them professionally graded, because the $50 grading fee is nothing compared to the potential $62 million payoff. Clean out those old coin jars, search through your parents' or grandparents' belongings, visit estate sales and flea markets, because somewhere out there, right now at this very moment, there are 1972 Rose Weldon dimes waiting to be discovered, waiting to change lives, waiting to create the next incredible chapter in this ongoing numismatic saga. And that, my friends, is the story of the 1972 Rose Weldon dime, a coin that proves beyond any doubt that fortune favors not just the bold but the observant, the curious, the people who take the time to look closely at the small things in life that others overlook. This $62 million dime is more than currency. It's a reminder that miracles happen, that treasures hide in plain sight, that your next big break could be sitting in your pocket right now, unrecognized and undervalued, just waiting for you to notice its true worth. So keep your eyes open, stay curious, examine every coin that passes through your hands, because you never know when you might stumble upon the find of a lifetime, the coin that turns dreams into reality and changes everything forever.